Okay, so Rupert Murdoch, Fox News and Sky News. They've certainly made themselves heard over the last 10 years especially. Now, Rupert Murdoch is almost 90. He's been around a long time. He's been in the newspaper business in a big way since about 1960. And most recently, Kevin Rudd, our former Prime Minister here in Australia, has put a petition in to the Commonwealth Parliament of Australia complaining about Rupert Murdoch and News Corp's dominance in the newspaper business, especially in Australia. Which would have been a point well made 30 years ago when Murdoch acquired this level of dominance, when newspaper readership was much higher. It's now much lower, and it's a minority of the community that reads newspapers. And obviously online, it's proliferated to some degree, but most of us get our news now either from television or online. So it's difficult to push the narrative that the newspapers are important to the point of needing very significant regulation around them. And I've not traditionally certainly been a fan of Rupert Murdoch. But it's interesting because now he does seem to be more of a centrist in many ways. When you look at some of the other big media that's out there that is quite leftist, that is quite prepared to bury stories and to rubbish other stories that do seem legitimate and requiring of investigation. Rupert Murdoch now and his affiliates like Fox News and Sky News seem to be prepared to run more stories that other big media are not prepared to, which is quite extraordinary. Sky News in Australia obviously has been attacked for having an after dark content that seems to be right wing. But the reality is that some of the contributors there have been critical of centre-right politicians. So it's not a free kick in many ways for conservatives or right of centre politicians. Those groups like Sky News and Fox News do report the news as well as having their opinion and commentary. And that is quite interesting because it's in other news organisations where those lines are blurred between news and opinion, whereas with Sky News and Fox News, it's pretty obvious the line between news and comment, and that's where a lot of the media's problem exists. So in many ways, Rupert Murdoch is now very much a force for balance in the media landscape, and as a result is a force for good because of that balance and the fact that a lot of mainstream media is now heavily partisan.